Hello, Internet. Welcome to episode 314 of the Assorted Calibers podcast. The second podcast has a little bit for everyone. I'm Weer'd, and with me tonight is the greatest hostess in the entire world, Aaron Paulette. How you doing, Aaron?
Much better now that I've burped several times.
Yeah, you're getting a little indigestion in the pre-show, and luckily, our combined years of medical school have cured you.
Yeah, David suggested I drink ginger ale, and that's really helped. So, patrons, listen for at least one burp on the blooper reel.
They're going to be good ones. Trust me, when I see them, I'm gonna boost them way up so that they're so they're in THX surround sound.
Like Booger from the first Revenge of the Nerds movie.
Oh yeah. Oh, that movie's, well, it's got some problematic moments, but overall movie's good. So you are feeling better? I was worried when you said you weren't feeling great that you were coming down with something.
No, I just felt super bloated, like, 9 months pregnant and ready to drop. Just ooh.
Yep.
And
go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay. My daughter got sick and stayed home from school on Friday and was still feeling a bit under the weather today. And today now my voice is holding out so far, knock on wood, and but I've got a bit of a runny nose, so you may occasionally I'll probably be scrubbing it out, but I may occasionally be honking the old schnoz during the show. I'm a little drippy. Hopefully it'll just kind of burn itself out, but I don't know. We'll see if I avoid getting sick. But the good news for her was that now that she's in middle school, the state requires absences to be excused, and you're only allowed so many unexcused absences before truancy. And I don't know what happens with truancy, but it's bad evidently. And so my wife just said, "Why don't you guys go to the doctor's office?" I'm like, "Fine, go to the doctor's office for a cold." But we got there and they're like, "Do you want to rule out strep?" I'm like, "We might as well." She's like, "Please don't." And I'm like, "Trust me, sweetie, this will be better." And she was strep positive, so we caught it early. So I was kind of expecting it to be done by today, but either way, got the meds on board. She's doing a lot better. She'll be hopefully going to school again tomorrow, and hopefully I will be in a vertical position tomorrow.
Yeah, when I was in school, the two things that I got sick from the most were strep throat and sinus infections.
Ooh, I've had some really bad sinus infections as a teenager, and so much that like anytime I start experiencing any sort of sinus pressure, or just head congestion, I just hit it with a pseudoephedrine just as hard and as fast as I can, just to clean it all out, because any of that stuff in there is just food for bacteria. But on more appetizing note, Aaron, you noted that this might be the pie episode.
Well, yeah, it's episode 314, and that's as close as we're going to get to 3.14.
And now I'm trying to remember I've got a car PM45, and I'm trying to remember if it's a 3.1 inch barrel or a 3.14 inch barrel, but the barrel is pie long. All right, well, shall we get down into the main body of the show?
If we have to.
So, starting off, and Aaron, you asked me, do I need to watch this video? And I'm like, nah, you really don't. But I will just say, and honestly speaking, you can or you can't. It's all up to you. But somebody, I'm trying to remember which group it was that released this. It was...
Well, first, let's tell our viewers what we're talking about. And the body cam footage of the police interviewing the Georgia school shooter and his dad has been released.
And this was the interview that happened last year, where supposedly the shooter had left had talked about shooting up a school on Discord, and the FBI triggered on it and dispatched the Atlanta police, or I don't know if it was Atlanta or whichever township they were in, issued the police, and they interviewed them, and they found that they really didn't have sufficient enough evidence to arrest or pursue any further. Essentially, there was enough plausible deniability that it may have been somebody else who was using that account, or the account may have been compromised. And we kind of threw a little shade at them during this, and for it, just because the family does seem like they're a little bit troubled and a little bit weird. But I've got to say, minus the part where the dad answers the door with no pants on, and he's got a long shirt, so you can't really tell what's going on underneath there. Other than that, it's actually a really, really cordial interview. And I got to say, I threw a little shade at the police and the FBI. Well, maybe this still could be some shade at the FBI. The police kind of sounded like the FBI kind of gave them a little bit of information, but not a ton of information. And yeah, so I got to say, like, the kid doesn't seem to be too weird or dodgy or anything like that. And the dad was very forthright and talking about that, and seemed super cool and involved, and was mentioning the fact that the kid had been going through some issues in school with bullying and some other stuff, and he had been regularly coming into school and going. Obviously, this is also happening in the wake of the parents' divorce. So I gotta say, I kind of am a little bit more on the side of the police on this one. I wouldn't have knowing what they know in that moment, I wouldn't have necessarily gone any further with this call, and it really makes me wonder if 13's a little on the young side, but it does happen to have some of the major psychotic disorders and things like that, where people can really have life-changing mental health issues.
Isn't that when schizophrenia can kick in? I'm not saying the kid has it, but isn't it like early teens where it starts to manifest?
It's anywhere from early teens at the earliest. It's usually in the mid-20s on average, but it can manifest itself as much as the late 30s. Generally, if you're in your mid-30s, and you haven't shown any signs of it, you're probably safe. But yeah, that's it. These are definitely diseases that do not show up in, or at least rarely show up in prepubescent children. There might be some instances where they do, but they're very rare. And so I gotta wonder if that was what was going on here, where, obviously you've got all the stress, you've got the mom has, a whole bunch of substance abuse issues, which almost always are a comorbidity with mental health issues. So family history, etc. That very well could have been what was happening. And, again, we mentioned it last week, the world's kind of broken when it comes to mental health services for people that are going in through the very, very severe mental health crises. And I gotta wonder, not knowing what was going on in the days and weeks before the shooting, and the exact circumstances of which we'll probably figure out at the father's trial for his role in the shooting. We'll have to see what's going on, but yeah, I just wanted to put that there because I kind of threw a little shade at the police, but I watched this and I'm like, man, there's nothing that's seems fishy about this. Like, I thought for sure this was police see something bad and do nothing, but that's not what I see. Maybe you see something different.
Well, like I said, I couldn't bring myself to watch it because I'm dealing with stuff. But I will tell you that the YouTube commenters don't agree with you. That doesn't mean you're wrong, because I've seen them argue about stupid things and come to stupid conclusions. But I think a lot of them are approaching this with 2020 hindsight. And, maybe they want to... crap, I don't know where I was going with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm having these things where sometimes my vocabulary just fails.
Yeah, no, I'm reading through it, and
okay.
I can't agree with these commenters. I mean, one person's talking about how the kid is rocking and swaying under pressure, but that's the father definitely mentions that the kid has anxiety issues and will probably get fairly agitated and upset being questioned by police, but that if there's a serious issue, then they should definitely talk to him to complete their like I said, he was super duper cooperative and seemed like very forthcoming and all that stuff, and seemed legitimately concerned about the kid's health and transitioning through the divorce and the problems with the schools and all that. So yeah, it's
okay. I remember now what I was trying to say. So, after any sort of violence, especially school shooting, emotions are running high. And it seems like the people who are commenting here are, rushing to condemn, to blame, to find fault. And the point that I'm making is that you are trying to approach this from the perspective of, if I were the cop in this situation, would I find this suspicious or not? Whereas they are going, oh my God, all of these are red flags. How could the police not see this? Because, they're operating from the hindsight of, we know the son goes and kills, so let's try and fill in the blanks. So you're approaching it from a little more scientific aspect, and they're just sort of backfilling with their preconceptions.
Yeah, I mean, I am a scientist, so that is that, and I do always try to not allow any of the meta information to creep in, because you've got to think about. It was actually very similar to when the George Zimmerman trial was going on, and there were all of these informations about Trayvon Martin. He was a very troubled teen and had been getting into a lot of trouble in school, and there were issues with drugs. There was issues with fighting. There was he had a gun illegally or likely illegally, and all of that stuff that really kind of portrayed him either as a gangster or a wannabe gangster. And none of that could be admitted in court because he was doing none of that stuff at the time that George Zimmerman confronted him, and only the information that George had at the time is relevant for whether or not he would act upon shooting. And that's certainly something that we must think about when reviewing any information. And frankly, we don't want cops just arresting people and uprooting people's lives because somebody said something or something goes on, because people screw up stuff all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I just wanted to say that, because again, I felt that I kind of jumped to some conclusions because so many of these past incidences, Parkland being the absolute worst, whereas one of those, like, they had every opportunity to lock this person up and then also get him a mental health evaluation and all of that, and they did absolutely nothing. Like, the school did nothing, the local police did nothing, the FBI did nothing. Like, there were just so many opportunities that were just missed, and then he went in and shot up the school, and the responding police did nothing. But it's our fault as gun owners, and they need to take our guns away. Okay.
So can we still agree, though, that the father is very much at fault for not securing his son's AR-15?
I have not heard any information on exactly how the gun was secured and how it was going on. So I'm going to reserve judgment on that as well.
Okay, fair enough.
Until the evidence starts getting presented in the trial, of which we'll absolutely cover here, because it's, super, super duper important for all of us, especially those of us with kids. So we will see. I mean, it certainly could be, if it turns out that they were really escalating his mental health, interventions and things like that, because he was really starting to lose grip with reality and was starting to become either violent or very, very disruptive and all that. And they weren't securing the gun. Absolutely. And just generally, if they weren't securing the gun, because 13-year-old kid in an urban area, there's no reason for him to have access to the firearm. I know farm boys who grew up on farms where, there's rifles available to you. Go out in the backyard and shoot woodchucks. And if there's a coyote going after the livestock, go ahead and shoot the coyote. But in the instance of this, where it is just a recreational firearm, and all that, she shouldn't have had access to it, and time will tell on what the condition of the gun was at the time of the shooter taking possession of it and bringing it to school.
All right, fair enough.
So moving on to another grim bit that I learned about because it was going all around the internet, and then later I found out, that's in Massachusetts. That's not too far from me. There is this incident that happened in Newton, Massachusetts, and in this case, there was several people who were standing on a street corner in Newton, and they were demonstrating for in solidarity with Israel in the Israel-Gaza war, and
I mean, you started to say Israel-Hamas war, and I think that's incredibly appropriate.
That is probably a better choice. I couldn't remember what the preferred one, but it is absolutely Israel versus Hamas. So I'll stick with that one. And somebody showed up on the other side of the street and started calling them out. And
well, I mean, not just calling them out, because we've attached a video here, and you can clearly hear that he is shouting, because this is across the street, that they are sick because they are supporting genocide.
Yes.
And you can then hear a woman, maybe she is the one who's filming it, and she's shouting back to him that he's stupid.
Yes. And I will add, because I think it seems she appears to have a Middle Eastern accent to her voice, which makes me wonder if she is Israeli.
I hadn't thought of that, potentially. But the point that I'm getting at here is, and I'm trying not to victim blame, but this is a very good reason why you don't engage with people like this. Mm-hmm. Because, look, I'm not saying that she baited him. We're getting ahead of ourselves. I'm getting ahead of myself. Because the next step is, after that, this guy charges across the street, dodging traffic, and then tackles somebody. I'm honestly surprised he didn't tackle her. He tackled another man. I don't know if that man was doing anything or saying anything. He wasn't captured on camera. But when we see the tackle, it looks like the aggressor tackles the man either from behind or catches him in the side because of how they land. But what I'm getting at here is, while there's no guarantee, if she hadn't told him that he was crazy and stupid and things like that, he might not have charged across. Again, she's got freedom of speech. She didn't do anything wrong, but she certainly didn't de-escalate the situation. And so, as has been said before, the best gunfights to have are the ones that you don't have because you're not there. Mm-hmm. And so, we will never know. But I feel like if she hadn't been doing that, there's a chance it wouldn't have happened. But this did happen. And I'm not saying it's her fault, because it's always the fault of the person breaking the law. And they were demonstrating, which was legal. How do we know it was legal? Because we didn't hear anything about them being arrested for an illegal protest or demonstration or whatever. She was exercising her First Amendment rights. I don't think that there was anything in there that could be considered fighting words unless you're like being super duper sensitive. I mean,
yeah, I think the reasonable man theory is that, or model. I can't remember what the legal term is for the reasonable man, would not turn to violence because someone called you stupid.
Yeah, exactly. So this guy got very offended for whatever reason, charged across the street, dodging traffic, and tackled a man who was described as, they didn't say elderly, I believe, but they did mention he was older. So I get the feeling he's like middle-aged, 40s, 50s, something like that. He's obviously a stocky man with gray hair, and he's listed as being a former veteran. Or no, I'm sorry. He is a veteran. And because, combat is unexpected and there's a lot of stuff going on, it's really hard to see what happens clearly. But you've got this guy who has charged across the street, tackled the man, they're down on the ground, and they're grappling, and the veteran pulls a gun and shoots the assailant once at pretty much contact distance, I think in the gut. I'm not sure. It's not immediately
the side
fatal.
of the abdomen.
Okay. I mean, if he had been shot anywhere in the upper chest at that distance, I think he would have, if he hadn't died instantly, he would have bled out really quickly, and he didn't. And after the shooting, well, I'm not going to say the fight completely went out of the assailant, because two people had to come up and pull him off. And
yeah, he kept fighting pretty strong until essentially everyone had gotten off and even tried to get up and kind of walk away, and then he realized that he was hurt way worse than he was. I think he may not even realize he'd been shot in that instance, which is absolutely something that happens.
One thing that I thought was very interesting was that the man shot him once, and then not only did he not shoot him again, but he actually put his gun down behind him and asked another demonstrator to secure it so that he could continue to grapple with the guy. And, I don't really know why. At this point, we're all speculating. But my Monday morning quarterbacking here is to say the guy didn't really know what was going on, just he had been attacked. And in that moment, he pulled the gun and he shot. And then he realized, okay, I'm not actually in as bad a situation as I thought I was. Because I imagine just being shot, even if the guy didn't feel it, it shifted the momentum of the attack, and then you had other people that were pulling the guy off, the assailant off, and so the man figured, you know what? I don't need this gun. I don't need to shoot him again. Let's just get him off me. And then the next part of the video.
Actually, let me interrupt real quick. Is my speculation is that it very well could be. I remember hearing an account of somebody who had someone with a mental disability break into their house and essentially broke their door down and started advancing on him, and he pulled out his gun and started shooting at the guy. And his overall statement is, I can't really tell you what exactly happened to get me to stop shooting, but I shot until he changed and he saw a major difference. And while I suspect that he the assailant was not aware that he had been shot in the moment, I think that his body responded, or at least his body may have responded to it. So it could have been that, obviously this guy came at a lot. He took the guy clean off his feet and put him onto the ground. And so obviously he was not a weakling, but I wonder if once that bullet went into his gut, he suddenly was not fighting with as much vigor as he was, and he realized that was doing the trick, and he just needed to ride it out.
Well, that's what I meant when I said the momentum of the fight had changed. I didn't. I could have phrased it better, but that's exactly what I meant.
Yep.
And so usually that's where the videos end. But David found for me this particular video, and it shows something that I've seen nowhere else. Mm-hmm. And that is, once the assailant has been pulled off the victim, well, as you say, the assailant, stands up, tries to get away, and then that's when he realizes he's been shot and isn't feeling well. And the victim, the man who had just shot him, tries to render some degree of first aid. We don't see much, but we see that he's doing an assessment. He's, checking the wound. He's having the man lie down. I don't know if he's got a first aid kit or not. It wouldn't surprise me. He is a veteran. He's calling for people to call 911. And I think that's going to be critical for what happens next, because to no one's great surprise, because it happened in Massachusetts, the man who shot in self-defense has been arrested.
Mm-hmm. And he has been charged with, let's see, I had it here, assault and battery with a dangerous weapon, which I can understand, and violation of a constitutional right causing injury, which, talk about insult to injury, is this man was attacked while engaging in a demonstration. There's no word on whether or not they had asked the town for a permit for this demonstration, or if it was impromptu. I would have to imagine, with how BS these charges are, that if there had I mean, obviously he had a Massachusetts LTC because he was not charged with illegal carrying of a weapon, and thanks to NYSERPA, if you can legally own a gun, you can now legally carry a gun in Massachusetts. Unfortunately, unlike constitutional carry states, where if you can legally own a gun, you can legally carry a gun. You can't legally own a gun until you get the permit, but the permit is always a carry permit now in the state, unless you are under the age of 21.
Well, if this had been like some sort of illegal demonstration, then they would have mentioned that in the various things that we've had. So they may not have had a permit, they might not have needed a permit, but if they had been doing something wrong with the demonstration, that would have been mentioned, like, man shot at illegal protest or something like that.
Yeah, I think I got to imagine this is Massachusetts, and nothing is just allowed. So I bet that they had permission to be standing there and demonstrating, especially since, these people seem to have their I's dotted and their T's crossed. So I think that's a fair assumption, and they would have charged demonstrating without a permit, because we absolutely have demonstration permits and things like that. So yeah, but so again, this person was demonstrating, which is his First Amendment rights to do so. However you may feel about the Israel-Hamas war, and whether or not there's genocide, or whether or not this guy is stupid, they had the right to demonstrate and to say all those things, and they did not have the right to be assaulted while they were doing it. And so this reeks of backwards day. But it also should come as no surprise, because the DA of Middlesex County is a woman named Marion Ryan. And just a little special tidbit is this is the same DA that started the ball rolling that gave us Catano versus Massachusetts. So
that's the one about the stun gun, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. A woman had used a stun gun in self-defense, and she decided to charge her with carrying an illegal electronic stun device, which was, honestly speaking, it's not as egregious as this, in my opinion, because literally the law says no electronic stun devices. But
well, if I recall correctly, I think that she was being stalked by an ex.
I believe so.
And couldn't get a pistol for whatever reason, most likely just because of Massachusetts' insane carry laws.
I mean, it can take months to get your permit because
right.
Your permit is a carry permit. So think about all of the rigmarole that goes through if you're a state that has a training requirement and a, written test requirement and that sort of stuff. That's what you have to go through before you can walk into your first gun shop and say, may I have a look at that? I was almost said Glock, but we're talking about Massachusetts here. May I have a look at that M&P pistol?
Mm-hmm. But I would imagine that even if she couldn't get a stun gun in Massachusetts, there would be something that she could fairly easily acquire in a neighboring state.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, she got something to protect herself from a stalker. The stalker attacked her. She used it to defend herself, and she was arrested. Gosh, the parallels.
Speaking of neighboring state, I've told this before. I was at my gun club, and I actually spotted it was a man and his girlfriend shooting, and she was doing like the crossed thumbs behind the slide of an M&P and all of that. And I had to step in. I'm like, I'm not going to see her get hurt. That's not a good way to do it. And turned out it was a 40 caliber M&P, which I find that 40 Smith & Wesson has a pretty punishing recoil for what it's putting down range. And so I had my Smith & Wesson 617 22 revolver, and I said, "Hey, do you want to shoot this?" And let her shoot several boxes of ammo through that. And of course she liked it. That's one of the most fun handguns to shoot in the. And then the boyfriend was very grateful of my generosity and said, "Hey, do you want to shoot mine?" And I just politely accepted. I said, "Yeah, you can just give me a couple of rounds." And I thumbed 5 or 6 rounds into the magazine. And just before I seated, I looked down and saw that there were 12 witness holes on the back of the magazine. And I looked at it and I said, "You didn't get this around here." He goes, "Oh no, I was up in Maine and I stopped at the Kittery training post and they just had a bucket full of them and I just grabbed a couple." And I said, "He's like, they didn't say anything." And I'm like, "Yeah, because it was perfectly legal for you to buy those in Maine. You broke the law when you crossed over here, so you might want to find someplace else to put these." Not that I agree with that law, and hopefully it'll be overturned in the near future because, oh my God. But yeah, you can, if you travel into a free state from a slave state like Massachusetts, yeah, you could just buy guns.
So getting back onto the topic of Massachusetts being dumb. So the guy's been arrested. I think we can just assume he's going to be indicted before a grand jury. Because again, Catano. It's going to go to trial, and considering that we've got video of the entire thing, I feel very confident in saying he will be found not guilty.
I will say that this was a cleaner shoot than Kyle Rittenhouse's. I mean, you've got.
Well, the thing is, a lot of our listeners may not think Rittenhouse was a clean shoot.
I mean, I would ask them to look at the video evidence that is available. But that actually does lead me to the one instance of the Kyle Rittenhouse shoot that really kind of sets the whole ball in motion, which is when the first gentleman, the one that was screaming the racial slurs in the moments before his death,
the child molester.
Yes, the child molester, the multiple child molester. He was a friggin' monster. Nothing of value was lost, but he was chasing Kyle around, and the allegation is that he actually grabbed the barrel of the rifle, and that was what led Kyle to shoot. And that is not clearly seen on camera. So it could be argued that Kyle was agitated by this guy chasing him and shot him in less than clean self-defense. And the argument that was made by everyone was, oh, all these other people, yeah, they were charging him and trying to kill him. He had just shot and killed somebody. They were trying to stop a spree killer, which is a fair argument. And so it all comes down to, was he justified in shooting the first person? In which case, would he be justified in shooting the others? And add in the restraint that, like this guy, Kyle only shot, I think 5 or 6 times, over the course of this, and all but, I believe, one of the rounds hit a person he was aiming at. But in this instance, you see it from the start to the finish.
And we've got it in multiple angles too. That's the thing.
Yep.
You've got the woman who was filming, and then there was someone else from the other side that was filming it.
Yep. So you have the multiple angles. There certainly was discussion that there might have been more angles of the Rittenhouse shooting that got suppressed, but that's pure speculation. But in this instance, we've got 2 very, very clear angles of it. We can very clearly hear the audio of what everyone is saying. He charges across. He is, the man's name is Scott Framingham. I say that only because he has some like GoFundMe's and some other fundraising sites. So if you want to search his name or look it up in the show notes, if you want to donate, if you don't, that's fine. But he is currently out on bond. But they're throwing everything at him, so he's got a big trial going through. And as we know, this costs a ton of money when it goes to trial like this. Another reason to have concealed carry insurance. If you're carrying a gun around, make sure that you've got someone that may foot the bill in the event that you get charged with an egregious crime like this.
Okay, but again, I'm going to reiterate my question because you're more familiar with the legal system in Massachusetts. Do you think he's going to be declared not guilty? In a just world, I think it's very, very clear cut. You've got no use. I don't think we crossed into fighting words. So there's no instigation. The guy ran across 2 lanes of traffic, which could be argued a barrier that he overcome. He ran at full speed. So this was not he was coming up just to give them a piece of their mind, and they were just going to have a heated discussion, which again is everyone's First Amendment right. Everyone can disagree, and there's nothing wrong with that. But immediately became violent. The guy's 47 years old, which is only 2 years older than me, but he looks older than that. Okay. By the guy, you mean the victim, not the assailant?
Yes. Mr. Framingham. The other person hasn't been named, which kind of bothers me as well. But
he does look like he's in his 20s, maybe early 30s.
Yes. So he is at least a decade, if not 2, younger than Mr. Framingham, and certainly Mr. Framingham's got a bit of a gut going on, and he's got a gray beard and all of that. And this guy is definitely more in his prime. So you could argue that there's a disparity of physical force there, and knocking someone over onto concrete, that can be a death sentence right there. And I was talking with my wife, and my wife was kind of playing devil's advocate, going, did he really need to go for the gun? And I said, when you're on top of somebody and they've already knocked you down to the ground and now they're trying to strangle you, now is not the time to try to figure out what is the absolute minimal amount of force that you can apply to make this end.
Especially when you've been ambushed like that.
Yeah.
Because the guy didn't come up in the front. He came up either from behind or from the side. And I feel like if Mr. Framingham had seen him coming, he wouldn't have been quite so easy to knock over.
Correct. And then you have just a single shot was fired. He got the gun out of the fight as quickly as he could. I mean, number one, he felt that I assume he felt he didn't need it anymore. We'll find out in the trial. But he felt that he didn't need it anymore and told somebody to secure it, and someone very quickly snatched it up. And then after the fighting stopped, they got called 911. They got the medics here. This guy is still alive. He was not killed in this. And Mr. Framingham starts rendering first aid, which is something that I would not do, nor would I recommend someone else to do. If somebody was just trying to kill me, I would definitely do everything I could to get the paramedics there as quickly as possible and be as helpful and forthcoming for that. But getting that close to somebody who was already trying to do you harm, I mean, clearly it worked out in his behalf, and I can only imagine that will also play out well in the court. But this is also Massachusetts, so I think in the end, Mr. Framingham will be acquitted.
But he's going to have to fight every step of the way.
It may take him multiple appeals, but at some point he's going to get somebody who is not politically biased, whether it be for the fact that he's a Massachusetts gun owner or potentially for the fact that he was demonstrating on the side of Israel. There certainly has been some anti-Israel sentiment expressed a lot here in Massachusetts as of late, which I am not a huge fan of. But so we will see. But yeah, this DA definitely despises gun owners, despises self-defense, and who knows how they feel about Israel, but I could make my guesses. So I think the DA is going to throw everything at him, whether or not he's going to get either a prejudicial dismissal, which would be the ideal situation given where we are now. The ideal situation is good job, and we will see, and we will cover this case because this will. I mean, it's. Like I said, I didn't realize that it was a local story until I saw the news report of him being indicted or charged, and so and arrested. That Massachusetts, no crap, that's right here. So yeah, I wish him the best of luck. This is a terrible situation to be in, and I will again urge everybody out there, if you are carrying, I mean, honestly speaking, even if you're not carrying a weapon, if you carry a pocket knife, if you know martial arts, if at any point in time you are set up to supply judicial violence and righteous violence to someone who is trying to harm you, I advise you to get one of the concealed carry insurance that covers more than just firearms. Again, I've got the Armed Citizen Legal Defense Network. I'm very, very happy with it. It's very, very reasonable, especially when you realize like how much of a ride Mr. Framingham is about to go on as far as legal fees and trouble. So yeah. Get yourself some concealed carry insurance. It might be the greatest choice you ever made in your life.
Mm-hmm. And even if this does work out for him, the process is the punishment, and he's going to have to spend a lot of money and a lot of time in his life and suffer damage to his reputation all because of this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially in an anti-gun place like Massachusetts, being the dude that was both demonstrating for Israel. There may be some people that don't like Israel in your day-to-day life, and then there also may be people that don't like the fact that you carry a firearm, and there definitely will be people that will be like, why'd you have to shoot him, or why didn't you shoot him in the leg, or whatever.
Yeah, meanwhile, if this had happened in Florida or Tennessee or any of these other states with more sensible self-defense laws, they would have gone, yeah, that was justifiable self-defense. We're not bringing charges.
Oh, I will correct you on that. Massachusetts actually has extremely good self-defense laws. The only thing that I will complain about with Massachusetts, besides the fact that you need a permit just to own a firearm and it needs to be renewed, and they're just generally troublesome for you getting guns and ammunition. Once you have that firearm, the self-defense laws are really, really good, save for we don't have stand your ground. So therefore you do have a duty to retreat. And that may,
Well, look, he was down on the ground grappling.
Oh,
you
yeah.
can't retreat from that.
Oh, it's actually that. Yeah, I hadn't actually contemplated that, but yeah, the duty to retreat is easy to even off the table because yeah, he was on his back when he shot. There's no. You can't retreat when you've got no motor surfaces on the pavement, and the guy's literally on top of you and literally grasping you around the throat. So that's there's certainly something to be said about that. But yeah, we don't have that, but we have a castle doctrine. You can open fire on somebody even if they have not displayed a weapon, if they have forced entry into your home without permission. And just as a general rule, we've got pretty reasonable self-defense laws. Again, everything but the duty to retreat law is pretty much on par with everybody else, save Texas, where, my goodness, like, I don't know why there's crime in Texas, the way their self-defense laws are written. I mean, it's just one of those. I mean, they've still got the law written about shooting cattle rustlers, hanging chicken thieves, but so it's not that the self-defense laws are broken here. It is just that this DA is completely politically motivated, in my opinion, and completely against self-defense and the Second Amendment. And so the audacity that he had to own a firearm and actually use it in a non-trivial fashion, where they just want you to do just sporting. And,
okay.
He defended his life, and for that crime, he is facing a lot of serious charges.
Well, I'm glad Massachusetts isn't as bad as I thought.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just, going off that video clip from last week. Everything is illegal in Massachusetts.
I mean, it's not too far off.
Future Weer'd here. This bothered me. This really, really bothered me. I misread the news report in the article, or maybe they edited it. I don't know. I double checked it just now just to see. Did I read it that wrong? And maybe I didn't. Maybe I didn't. I don't know. But the man who is being charged, who ended up discharging the firearm in self-defense, in my opinion, and Aaron's opinion as well, and frankly should be in your opinion. Watch the video. But his name is not Framingham. His name is Scott Hayes of the city of Framingham, which is right next door to where the shooting happened in Newton. So yeah, that's apologies to both Mr. Hayes, to our listeners that I screwed that up. This was essentially a late breaking story at the time of the recording. So apologies to that. Also, just because we're doing late breaking stuff, the other man, whose name is Caleb Gannon, he was also charged. Let's see. I'm reading a story, but yeah, he has also been charged. So he is not essentially blameless in the eyes of the law. So at least there is that. So that's a quick correction at the last minute from the editing booth. So thank you so much. Back to the show. All right, last up. So I'm not going to go too deep into this because we are fresh in the breaking news. This is I
mean, it's only been 24, a little more than that, but yeah, I mean, we are still deep within the 72-hour window here of the second assassination attempt against Donald Trump.
Yes. And this one, I gotta say, I don't want to dive too deep because a lot of facts are starting to show up about how this shooting went down and about the shooter and various things, and it's not adding up to me. It is very, very, very strange, and so I am not going to speculate until I start seeing a more hammered down timeline and a lot of evidence. But essentially, Donald Trump was golfing at one of his favorite golf courses, and while he was at one of the holes that was near the edge of the course that bordered a highway, the Secret Service patrol saw a gun barrel poking out from the bushes, and the Secret Service agents opened fired on the gun barrel. Didn't hit anything, but the would-be assailant dropped the gun. It was a SKS rifle that had been tap code within an inch of its life. It is very much one of those SKSs.
I have one of those SKSs.
Okay.
Okay, if I want to get really technical, it's actually the Chinese clone of it, the Type 56?
56, yeah.
Yeah. But yes, I have definitely Tapco fudged it. And I have no regrets. You cannot shame me. I enjoy it.
Okay, I have a Romanian SKS, and it is with the exception of the sling is actually a commercial AK-47 sling on it, but it fits nicely and looks good on it. But other than that, it is in full Romanian military splendor. And I have a Chinese Type 53, which is
Which one's that?
Mosin-Nagant M44.
Oh,
so
okay.
the carbine with the integral bayonet.
So I have two thoughts about this, and I'm not even going to get into the mental facility of the shooter or what he was doing here what he was doing here in Florida, because he'd been previously a resident of Hawaii, and then at one point he was up in was it Harvard? You said you saw him on a video?
Yeah. Friend of the show with a common... No, it was somebody else. Somebody else in a different group found a video of him. So one of his, besides disliking the president, one of his major passions was he was very much on the side of Ukraine in the Russo-Ukraine war, and was trying to recruit people for the Foreign Legion to help fight the Russians. And I found a video where he was trying to recruit some people, and my wife used to live up the street from Harvard in Cambridge, and so I would frequently walk around and walk through I believe it's the engineering library, but I recognized it immediately. So he was in Cambridge, Massachusetts, near Harvard Square.
Okay.
So he has been everywhere, and I will also say that that he has been he was ruled by the judge to be indigent and has been given a public defender. So he's been burning a lot of plane tickets, but has no money, which again doesn't add up to me. But I'm not going to speculate at this time.
So, first of all, I've seen pictures of what, if you're being charitable, you could call a sniper's nest. And
a wish.com sniper.
Yeah, and apparently he was right up next to the fence that fenced off the golf course, and he had two backpacks hanging from it. And I've seen some reports, but I don't know how accurate they are, that those backpacks had ceramic plates in them. So it looks like he was trying to set up something that both obscured him from sight and also provided some ballistic protection. That's still kind of iffy right now. But really, the main question I have here is that the range from his position to Trump, according to the news reports that I'm seeing right now, is between 400 and 500 yards. Now, the effective range of the 7.62 by 3.9 is 300 yards. Now, no, I don't expect that guy to know this, but still, it's a case of, I don't know, I guess I'm expecting better, because, the previous assassin, or intended assassin, at least was using a gun that not only could reach Trump, but actually managed to hit him. Shooting at someone that far away with an AK it's like, no wonder he missed.
Well, there is no word that if he did in fact fire. I know that the Secret Service has said that they fired upon him, but there's no. I have heard no confirmation that the shooter actually discharged the rifle. He just had it pointed at Trump.
Okay.
And yes,
I'm just sitting here going, at that range, he's going to be digging turf.
Yeah, the SKS is not a particularly accurate platform. It's a tilting bolt design as opposed to the rotary bolt, which I don't know and have a lot of practical knowledge on that, but overall it's considered that rotary bolts are considered have a much more repeatable lockup than the tilting bolt guns. Also, as a general rule, 7.62 by 39 that's available commercially is almost always going to be really, really bottom of the barrel, cheap stuff where, as I believe Carl Caserta said on In Range TV, they put a Crazy Ivan in every box. Where just it's one of those bang, bang, bang. Where the hell did that one go? And so, I don't know. There certainly are companies that make precision 7.62 by 39. They're few and far between. Those are definitely specialty runs. But certainly Occam's razor says to me that he's shooting, Red Army or Tula or Wolf or some of these, inexpensive steel-cased ammo, which is great for shooting at the range. It's great for if you have an AK or an SKS and you want to utilize that for home defense or personal protection. Absolutely for, closer range. But once you start getting out to 100 yards or more, you've got to really be careful because it's, there's a lot of variability in there, and there's a lawyer attached to all those bullets.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. 7.62 by 39 is a great round for what it's designed to do, and it's not designed for precision marksmanship, because in armies that use that caliber, the designated marksman has the equivalent of like a Dragunov or a PSL or whatever that uses 7.62 by 54. The good old Mosin caliber.
So yeah, this was definitely very much like the shooter, which we didn't actually talk about it, but the shooter in Pennsylvania, it was confirmed that he was using an unmagnified red dot, of which at that range, if he was aiming at Trump's head, the dot was bigger than Trump's head. So Trump his target would have been completely obscured by the dot. And so, yeah, it was not, the rifle was not set up for the type of shooting that he was doing. And in this case, it had a scope on it. The SKS is not a particularly easy platform to mount a scope on. So I definitely would question the stability and zero retaining nature of that scope. And honestly speaking, how half-assed all of this was, I wouldn't be surprised if the gun wasn't even zeroed. So yeah, that's it's weird. This guy is super duper weird. He's he's from North Carolina. He had some sort of police standoff. I've heard accounts, but I've heard more accounts that don't specify than do. But he got charged with the possessing a weapon of mass destruction in North Carolina. That for those who listen to the Gun Blog Variety Cast with Sean doing the felons behaving badly segment, he frequently found cases out of North Carolina, because that's where Sean lives, where someone was hit with this charge for explosives or other things that can harm multiple people in a go.
I recall reading, and I don't remember where, but what he was charged with was for possessing a machine.
That's what I read as well. I'm gonna wait to confirm that. So take that with a grain of salt, because again, we are still super duper early in all of this. But he was a convicted felon. I have heard that that somebody blew the whistle that when he was living in Hawaii, he owned a gun illegally, but the local police did nothing, which makes a whole lot of sense, because that's how anti-gun states work is they pass laws that make you a criminal, and then when bad people break those laws, they don't do anything. So that checks out. But yeah, he clearly flew from Hawaii to Florida and went there. I also I've heard this on multiple instances, but he actually staked out in this nest starting at like 1:00 in the morning. So he was there for like 12 hours before Trump got on the golf course. And the question, of course, is how did he know that Trump was there? There's so much on there, and probably a lot of it we'll never have an answer to, but it will be interesting to see. But he is a very, very strange individual. Obviously there's going to be some mental health issues in there. Like, that's a guaranteed, but yeah, we will see what's going on, but I think that we will have more to report next week.
Mm-hmm. Again, I'm going to reiterate what I said the last time this happened. I know that there are people who are really afraid of a Trump presidency, and without saying whether or not I agree or disagree, I'm saying I understand. But I'm also going to say, if you're worried about 4 years, you really don't want to deal with decades of martyrdom if someone succeeds in killing him. Because it's going to be so much worse from your standpoint. Because, if he gets elected, it's 4 more years and he's done. And then you don't have to worry about him being president ever again. But once he's dead, he's going to be canonized by the right. And you won't be able to do anything about that. It's only going to make things worse from your point of view. So please, not like my listeners are really going to seriously consider killing Trump, but just, I feel the need to say this.
Yeah. No, it is a good thing. And yeah, we've got a lot of listeners that are in a lot of varied circles. So it is, while maybe you won't be someone that has this level of animosity, you maybe rub elbows with people. I have certainly encountered people in my day-to-day that have definitely said if only he had been a better shot. Mm-hmm. And it's one of those like, yeah, exactly. The whole martyrdom. I mean, all you got to do is look to see how, being in Massachusetts, oh my God, I've seen it firsthand, is how much Democrats in general, but definitely the people of Massachusetts, have deified John F. Kennedy. I mean, number one, a lot of his party platforms would actually be side closer to a more moderate Republican than a Democrat these days. And the fact that he was staunchly anti-communist, he was actually a vocal supporter of the Second Amendment and an avid shooter. And yeah, and was not a huge fan of taxes, but he was also,
I mean, growing up a bootlegger son will do that.
Yeah, exactly. He was also a serial philanderer. He made a lot of really poor foreign policy issues. Nearly got us into World War III. I mean, he's a mixed bag of a president, just as Abraham Lincoln is too. But again, Abraham Lincoln has been deified as well, because you shoot somebody in the head and all of a sudden, you're getting into speaking ill of the dead when you're talking about their mistakes, and that's not a great thing. And then furthermore, I mean, say what you will about Trump, there's a lot of Trump supporters that think that he supports things that he is either has shown no evidence of supporting or has openly said that he doesn't support those things. A great example is all the evangelical Christians who are flocked to Trump's thing. And it's one of those, like, the dude's a serial philanderer. He's not a pious man. There's no way he is a pious man. He has cheated on every woman that he has pledged his allegiance to. But in martyrdom, suddenly Trump becomes the uber Christian, and Trump becomes the family values person, and Trump becomes a lot of things. So yeah,
the Warhammer 40K God Emperor.
See those pictures; those are pretty hilarious of people putting Trump's head on the God Emperor. But yeah, you don't want to do that.
So you know what else I didn't want to do? I didn't want to watch the debate last week, and I didn't. And from what I hear, a lot of people were happy that they didn't. If you, like me, didn't watch the debate, then Weer'd is here with one of his patented audio Fisks to tell you all of the gaslighting that Kamala Harris did.
On September 10th, 2024, former President Donald Trump and Vice President and presidential hopeful Kamala Harris met for a debate. I won't lie, I didn't have the stomach to watch the full debate. And also, I was up late recording Handgun Radio at ACP on Sunday and Monday, so I think I was fast asleep before they even took the stage. But I watched some highlights the next morning, and I got excited to hear this exchange.
She has a plan to confiscate everybody's gun.
President Trump,
she has a plan.
To move. Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away, so stop with the continuous lying about this stuff.
Well, this exchange was super interesting because A, this is the first time Donald Trump has really talked about the Second Amendment. Also, this was the only time it was brought up, as the moderators had 0 questions for either candidate. But of course, B, Kamala's response. Don't you all remember the 2020 presidential primary?
People are seeking the nomination. They said, I'm going to issue an executive order. Biden saying there's no constitutional authority to issue that executive order when they say I'm going to eliminate assault weapons, saying you can't do it by executive order any more than Trump can do things when he says he can do it by executive order. Does the vice president have a point there?
Some things you can, many things you can't.
Let's let the senator answer.
Well, I mean, I would just say, hey, Joe, instead of saying no, we can't, let's say yes, we can.
Let's be constitutional. We got a constitution.
And yes, we can, because I'll tell you something. The way that I think about this is I've seen more autopsy photographs than I care to tell you. I have attended more police officer funerals than I care to tell you. I have hugged more mothers of homicide victims than I care to tell you. And the idea that we would wait for this Congress, which has just done nothing to act, is just, it is overlooking the fact that every day in America, our babies are going to school to have drills, elementary, middle, and high school students, where they are learning about how they have to hide in a closet or crouch in a corner if there is a mass shooter roaming the hallways of their school. I was talking about this at one of my town halls, and this child, it was 8 years old probably, came up to me. It was like it was a secret between the two of us, and he tugged on my jacket and he said, I had to have one of those drills. It is traumatizing our children. El Paso and Beto, God love you for standing so courageously in the midst of that tragedy. You know, people asked me in El Paso, they said, you know, because I have a long-standing record on this issue, they said, well, do you think Trump is responsible for what happened? And I said, well, look, I mean, obviously he didn't pull the trigger, but he's certainly been tweeting out the ammunition.
Kind of interesting to hear Joe Biden arguing on the side of the Constitution. Of course, in Joe's defense, he never signed an executive order on guns, and instead only passed gun control by conventional means through House and Congress. Harris, of course, disagrees with him on that. She then went on a tirade about gun violence, except she's from California, where they have the most gun control in the country, but massive amounts of gun violence, both street violence and also spree killings. Speaking of California, she mentioned that she and Governor Walz both own guns. Walz has been very open about posing with his expensive hunting shotguns, as if ducks and deer were the reason the founders codified the Second Amendment. But what about Harris? Turns out in 2019, she was talking at an Everytown and its subsidiary Moms Demand Action event, all Bloomberg-owned corporate gun lobbies. And she mentioned that she carried a gun because she was a prosecutor. This is actually super common. My father-in-law was threatened by a client he represented as a public defender, and he started carrying a gun after that. I'm sure it's even worse for prosecutors, even anti-gun ones. Also, I've heard a lot of Second Amendment activists asking if she still owns the gun and if it's legal. And I'll note that in most states, including California, attorneys general and district attorneys are both considered law enforcement officers, and that may entitle them to guns not available to the lowly subjects of California or Washington, D.C. Oh, in this Everytown event, she called for banning assault weapons, which are the most commonly owned firearms in the country. But I don't even have to go back that far.
So Tim is a hunter and a gun owner who believes, as the majority of gun owners do, that we need reasonable gun safety laws in America. So as governor, he expanded background checks and increased penalties for illegal firearm sales. And together, when we win in November, we are finally going to pass universal background checks, red flag laws, and an assault weapons ban.
This was in August 6th of 2024. And notice how she saved the assault weapons ban for the end to get the big applause. I think she may have been telling a little fib when she said she didn't want to take anybody's guns during the debate. And of course, she's the vice president currently under Joe Biden, the most vocally anti-gun president in history. Bill Clinton still holds the title for the most anti-gun president, but he didn't talk about banning guns nearly as much as Joe does.
Jill and I went to Uvalde for a couple of days. We spent hours and hours with each of the families. We heard their message, so everyone in this room, in this chamber, could hear the same message. The constant refrain, and I was there for hours meeting with every family. They said, do something. Do something. Well, I did do something by establishing the first ever Office of Gun Violence Prevention in the White House, that the Vice President is leading the charge. Thank you for doing this.
Not only does Joe want to take our guns away, but he put Kamala in charge of the department to do it. At least we can take some solace that Vice President Harris has done nothing in this department.
I'm proud we beat the NRA when I signed the most significant gun safety law in nearly 30 years because of this Congress. We now must beat the NRA again. I'm demanding a ban on assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. Pass universal background checks. None of this. I taught the Second Amendment for 12 years. None of this violates the Second Amendment or vilifies responsible gun owners.
Of course, the videos where I grabbed this audio are in the show notes, so we can see Vice President Harris standing and clapping as President Biden requests that we ban the guns we all have and use. So yeah, Vice President Harris lied. And it was a pretty bald-faced one. While President Trump doesn't have a great record when it comes to the Second Amendment, Kamala Harris is openly hostile to it. And we have to consider that on Election Day in November. Those are your anti-gun talking points and a few rebuttals to combat them. So I need to add that in between me recording this Fisk and Aaron and I sitting down to record tonight, Kamala Harris tweeted out a tweet that had an image that was a bright orange card with the White House seal at the bottom that said ban assault weapons, and the text above it said Congress must renew the assault weapons ban. So yeah, she didn't even wait like a week before just openly doubling down. She wouldn't double down on stage, but to Twitter, she's gonna say, yeah, no, I want to ban the guns that you all have.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not coming for your guns, as we have all heard. That's why I gave Beto O'Rourke money. You keep saying it, Beto. People have been telling me for years, nobody wants to take your guns. You're just crazy for saying they want to take all the guns. Oh, yeah? He said it and they all clapped.
Well, if I was inclined to be charitable, I would say that Harris is fine with people who own revolvers and pump or break action shotguns and bolt action hunting rifles. And she doesn't plan to come for those guns, so by that logic, she's not coming for everyone's guns.
Yeah, I mean...
Yes, I realize I'm reaching. I'm definitely giving benefit of the doubt here.
I mean, like I said, she says that she owns and has carried a handgun, of which she likely was doing as a law enforcement officer. So that's one of those...
Which I have no problem with.
What's that?
Which I have no problem with.
I have no problem with that, but at the same time, I do have a problem with peace officers who are like, I'm the only one professional enough to carry this gun.
Yeah, we know how that one ended up.
Yes, we know about this is a Glock 40. They have a Glock 40 now. The 40 didn't exist then. And it's 9mm, I think, or I'm trying to remember which one that one is. Either way.
Well, we have a thing called Google.
Yeah. She was carrying it as a law enforcement officer, and Tim Walz is very much the Elmer Fudd character. I mean, even looks the part with his, multi-$1,000 hunting shotguns that he's always parading around with their gigantically long barrels that are horrendously impractical for personal protection, and the limited magazines, again, impractical for personal protection. It is just for shooting birds and clay birds. And that's how they see, quote unquote, the Second Amendment. George Washington was crossing the Delaware River on Christmas to get to his duck blind.
The Glock 40 is a 10mm.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. I just remembered the spree shooter that used one of those. Either way, Glock 40 is 10mm, which is actually hilarious because 10mm is 40 caliber. So that's almost appropriate versus the Glock 44, which is 22. And the Glock 22, which is 40.
It's a long slide, too.
Yeah, that's the long slide 10mm, which is 10. I love 10mm. And the longer the barrel you put on it, that round can really stretch its legs when you put a long barrel on it. So that is a great gun for if you are backpacking through bear country or you're doing some handgun hunting.
All right, Weer'd, what's going on with this next segment?
Now Xander gives us a cautionary tale of why you don't listen to the ACP blooper reel while operating heavy machinery.
Welcome to Independent Thoughts with yours truly, Xander Opal. Today I will do a segment on workplace safety. First, remember to wear your safety goggles, especially the tinted ones when using a cutting torch. 2. Wear a face shield. You might get splatters of hot molten metal on your face, even into your mouth. Don't ask. Have fun, be safe. I hope I gave you something to think about. This one's for you, Weer'd.
So, as you can tell by him breaking character at the end, this was all done as a gag. And in retaliation, I told him I'd publish it in the show. But he ended up sending me several text messages in the injured tongue lisps, and which I gotta say that was a commitment to a bit, because I guarantee his phone was yelling at him, going, "No, you're spelling them wrong." But as far as Xander actually burning his tongue, he denies it, but I picture him using the cutting torch with his tongue held out in concentration, and then he got a little bit of Weird Strength hot sauce on it.
In this segment, the Dodd gets silenced Tennessee style.
Hi, and welcome to Gun Lovers and Other Strangers. Returning to interviews from the GOA Goals Expo, in this segment, Oddball and I talked to Robert Ware of Tennessee Silencer, a one-stop shop for everything silencer-related that's located about an hour from my house. Rob is a really nice guy, and he just bought a tank.
We are here with Robert Ware from Tennessee Silencer. Came by, saw the display, and figured, local boys, gotta say hi. And then we found out you just bought a tank.
We sure did.
So why don't you tell us a little about the company, how long you've been around, what kind of stuff you do?
So we started in 2015, and our specialty is we are a gun store that mostly sells silencers. So probably 90% of our business is silencers, and the other thing that's kind of special is we do the entire process. You can show up at our store with money and have no idea of you need a driver's license and money, and you don't need to know anything about silencers because we'll educate you. We have a test range outside. You can bring your gun, and we can rate recommendations, take you outside, let you shoot a can on your gun, and make sure it's really going to work with your gun. Silencers are kind of purpose built for a lot of different things, and you can easily buy a good can that's the wrong one for your gun, and you may not find out that you bought the wrong thing until it's too late. It's already on a Form 4. So we try to save people money by getting on the right thing the first time.
Awesome.
Nice.
In the gun sphere, there are a lot of pedantic people. Do you ever get grief for having silencer instead of suppressor?
When I first opened up a little bit, and I debated between Tennessee silencer and Tennessee suppressor, and I kind of decided that like there's a lot of people who like are kind of hardcore about referring to them as suppressors, but silencer is much more widely known.
Right.
And
plus, Hiram Maxim,
he called it silencer. Yeah.
The guy who invents it gets to name it.
That was kind of always been my response. Like, well, the inventor called them silencers. So
I was going to say, just have a big copy of the patent behind you.
Yeah.
That'd actually be a nice decor in the stores, having some of the patent designs.
Yep. So we have the silencers.
You got silencers,
and over the years we've added some other stuff.
Right.
So we have a test range where you can try them out. The other thing we do is we do so many thousands of transfers that we're pretty darn good at your paperwork. So we have an extremely low error rate as far as like having people. If you go to a store that doesn't do it a lot, you may have to go get your fingerprints someplace or get photos. There's a high likelihood that your paperwork might have to be resent, and we have basically no resubmittals. I think we've had 2 this year, which we've done several thousand silencers, so I think that's pretty good. So we also do barrel threading, we do laser engraving, we help people do Form 1s.
Do you have an actual gunsmith, or is it? Oh, yeah. Nice.
Yeah, we have a rifle builder. He's a former, well, he's still a rifle builder. He's his specialty. He's been threading barrels for quite a good while.
Do you offer other services for gunsmithing besides barrel threading?
We do a little bit of repair work. People bring in their silencers. That's another pro is that about 98% of silencer problems people have, they can usually just bring them to us and we'll fix them without you having to send them back to the manufacturer. I mean, if you have like a catastrophic, rips your silencer in half, I probably won't fix that. But all the other, stuck on your barrel, or you put the wrong mount in it, or tube comes loose and needs new rock set, like we fix a lot of that stuff for you, so you don't have to send it back.
Very nice. So you are truly a full-service silencer shop.
Yeah, and that's the other thing is a lot of gun stores carry maybe 4 or 5 silencers. We carry like 90 different models right now, and if we carry a model, we always carry all the parts for it. So you don't have to get your thing and then wait, a few weeks for some part to be made and sent to us. We try to keep all that in stock. Sometimes we can't find stuff if they're not making them or whatever, but as long as we can keep it, we do.
Where are you located again?
We're in Seymour, Tennessee. So we're if you had a triangle and the points of the triangle are Knoxville, Maryville, and like Sevierville, Pigeon Forge, Gatlinburg, we are smack in the middle. So we're kind of in a rural area. Our store is in the middle of a farm, but we have 2 shooting ranges there.
Shooting ranges.
Yeah. So that the reason I joke that the reason we're out there is that they wouldn't let us shoot flamethrowers and machine guns in the middle of town, so we had to move out there.
Okay, this is the first time you mentioned flamethrowers. You have my attention.
Okay,
now
so
you have my interest.
Yeah. So we also we sell night vision. We do night vision training. That was kind of our second thing we added. So we try to specialize in stuff most gun stores don't do. So we have a lot of night vision and experience with that, lasers and all that. And we have a good place to test it because it's dark. But in the last 4 years, we added another thing. We have a machine gun range. We have our own private range, so that's kind of separate from the store. And we'll drive people down in Humvees, birthday parties, bachelor parties, stuff like that. And we have 30 different machine guns you can rent. We have a Barrett 50 cal you can shoot, 50 caliber Modus. We have a flamethrower, and we're about to add a tank to the mix too, so you can shoot from and drive a tank.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I am so distracted with visions of flamethrowers and tanks, I lost my train of thought entirely.
I'm just the mixture of the flamethrower, and then you start talking about night vision. I don't see those two mix.
They're very different businesses. So our range stuff is almost a different business than the storefront. We do them out of the same building, but they're down the street from each other.
A friend of ours who currently lives in Indiana, he and his family have been considering moving somewhere in Tennessee, and I have a feeling if I tell him about your store, that might affect his decision-making process.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they're pretty clear that they're moving at some point soon.
Yeah.
It was just where's their destination, and
where's it from?
Indiana.
So Indiana's not got too terrible gun laws. One of my favorite types of customers is we have folks who move down from New York or from Illinois or California, and they come in and they're like, I've been in Tennessee. I finally have my Tennessee driver's license. I want all the silencers and all the.
I want all the.
I want all the things they wouldn't let me have.
In fact, David is a refugee.
He's that guy.
Yeah, well, sort of. I don't have the budget for it, but 7 years ago, my wife and I moved here from rural upstate New York.
Yeah.
To Anderson County.
I got
Where are you originally from?
Okay, fine. I'm originally from Manhattan.
Okay. I have
It doesn't get much more It actually doesn't get any more New York.
One of the guys that works for us, Jim Rugnetta, he's going to be here later, and he's from the eastern end of Long Island. And so it's funny because he answers our phone a lot, and he's it's like, hello, this is Tennessee Silencer, except he's got like the New York accent pretty hard.
Okay. But, my wife grew up on Long Island, so I'll definitely want to come by and say hey to him.
Yeah, but he's one of those dudes who we first met as a customer. He came in and was like, I'm out of New York, free state, I need everything.
Yeah, I don't think we'd been here a week before I ordered a collapsible stock for one of my ARs.
Yeah.
Because of some of the changes in New York law, I also ordered a case of ammunition.
Right.
Delivered to my home, which New York doesn't allow anymore.
Wow.
And as I got the collapsible stock, the case of ammunition, took a picture of it, posted it online. F you, Cuomo.
Right.
Yeah, but how did you get into this? How did this business model start for you?
So, I started out in television, actually. I was a double major. I went into television production and ancient history. And my original plan was I was going to be a history TV show writer or whatever. Big into guns, big into history. And so I wound up working on TV shows.
I mean, if you know a lot about Nazi Germany, that's basically the History Channel.
Right.
How are you on aliens?
Not big on aliens. So anyway, the company I went to work for, the reality TV show kind of killed that genre, and History Channel, kind of went the way of reality. So we wound up working on a bunch of gun-related TV shows right as I moved there, and everybody knew I was a gun nut. So I quickly started working on TV shows that were gun-related. And I worked on a show called Sons of Guns. It was on Discovery Channel for 3 or 4 years.
Yeah. So you were one of the advisors for that?
I worked for the production company. So Discovery was paying for it, and I worked for the company that actually filmed it. And then we had Red Jacket that was being filmed. So I was kind of in the middle. And so the cool thing there was I got paid to learn all of the Class 3 stuff. We wound up eventually getting our own FFL, but I had to figure all that out from scratch, reading all the ATF manuals and stuff. So I kind of got paid to learn this business.
Yeah.
And I got to learn how to build a lot of machine guns and how silencers worked, and I did a lot of behind the scenes work, just doing whatever. When you work in that field, you always need a backup plan because everything, like, you only have work for 6 months at a time. Right. And so my backup plan started to become I was either going to get into night vision sales or silencer sales.
And you did both.
Eventually. Okay. At the time, silencers were still not popular or common, but you could kind of tell that they were about to be. And night vision was just way out of anybody's field of view at that point.
Right.
So,
what generation of night vision was the current one when you got started? 3 or 4?
Gen 3. Gen 3's been around kind of a long time. Of course, it's gotten better over the years, but it was still the same stuff. But night vision costs nearly the same, I would say, as it did back then. But with inflation, it feels cheaper. You know what I mean?
Right. And with
it's
the
more
newer
accessible.
stuff is much higher quality.
Yeah, it's more accessible now than it used to be. And there's just more people who have it.
Yeah. Actually, one of the contributors to the podcast is very knowledgeable about night vision. So you need to get Jake down here and introduce him. Yes.
Yeah. But
very cool.
Yeah, if anybody has any questions about silencers, they can always call the store or come down. That's our specialty. We love the more difficult the question, the better. Like, you bring a gun down that's some European weird thread pitch, we probably know exactly what silencer needs to go on because we're testing 30 different people's gun setups every day. So we can tell you all the problems and the good things about every model that's commonly available.
Okay, now to wrap things up, the tank.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
So,
and I want to know everything.
Yeah. So when I worked on Sons of Guns, we did an episode with a Scorpion, which is a British lightweight aluminum hulled tank. So I kind of knew a lot about that because we had worked on that for a few months. I knew everything about it, and I have some friends that own them as well. So I had kind of decided that eventually we were going to add some sort of tank to the machine gun range thing.
Sure.
It's kind of a touristy thing. And so I decided that was the model I wanted, and I've been trying to save up to get one for a few years, and other priorities came up. Well, anyway, England has been slowly selling theirs off And they sell to the public, so anybody can buy British vehicles. They don't come with guns and stuff on them. You got to do all that yourself. But they decided last year that they were done with the model. They were going to completely transition to the new model. And so if I wanted to get one, it was pretty much then. I had to get one right then.
You had to buy it from them or wait a few years and buy it from someone else.
So I was telling you guys before we started recording, like I have like 2 guns in my safe right now because I sold like pretty much everything in my collection to buy this tank for the store. So we've been working on it since May.
But it's a business expense.
Yeah.
It's a write-off.
So we've been working on it since May, trying to get guns, and we've put a bunch of night vision sights and stuff back in it, nice. Which is tricky, but I've got to put a coaxial machine gun in it and a driver's periscope, and then we're another month. I think we're going to be renting it out a lot. We've rented it out a couple times, but it's not really where I want it to be yet. But I think it will be here in a couple weeks. To a month.
Well, thank you so much for the time and all the exciting stories.
Yeah.
And since I live locally, I will almost certainly be out to see you.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I will be unsupervised. Otherwise, I will just be looking.
Yeah.
But thank you very much.
Yeah,
It's been a pleasure, and I look forward to seeing you.
Very much.
Yep.
Learning about Rob and his store may turn out to be expensive knowledge. Pray for me. Or at least my bank balance.
Dude, suppressor? You're a pro, dude. Look at this shit. Ah, okay.
That about wraps up this segment. If you have any questions for me or suggestions for future segments or a comment on a past segment, please post them on the Assorted Calibers Podcast Facebook or MeWe pages, and Aaron or Weer'd will make sure I see them. I'm also a contributor on the Blue Collar Prepping blog, which can be found at bluecollarprepping.blogspot.com. Finally, I'm a published author, and books with my stories can be found on Amazon under the names Brenna Bach and David Bach. That's all for now. Thanks for listening. I'm David, and this is Gun Lovers and Other Strangers.
Oh my God, these guys have all the fun toys.
I do wonder how much a British tank goes for these days. I know someone who would be very interested. He tried to buy the Albanian Air Force once, but they wouldn't sell to him.
Is this a certain fiction author?
No, this is my friend Tex.
Oh, okay. Never mind. I can picture him offering to buy the Albanian Air Force with a voice like that. Like, how could they say no?
I know, right? But I think he'd enjoy a tank.
Yeah. I mean, who wouldn't enjoy a tank?
Where would you park it? Well, I mean, obviously you'd
where would you park it?
Park it in
wherever you want.
Because I've got a tank. Well, I mean, I started to say you couldn't park it in the garage, but honestly, if you've got the money to buy a tank, you've got a place to store it, out in the country somewhere.
Yeah, that's true.
Like drive tanks in Texas.
Yep. Yeah, no, all those tanks had places undercover to park, but at the same time, yeah, no, if you've a tank, you park it on your neighbor's lawn. You parked a tank on my lawn. Yeah, what are you going to do about it? Call a tow truck. Unless you know a Ukrainian farmer, it's not going anywhere. It just popped into my head, like, call a tow truck, because a tow truck wouldn't be able to move. Wait a second, but Ukrainian tractors sure can.
Mm-hmm.
Your tank's mine now. Oh, those memes were so hilarious. I kind of miss them. You know who else is hilarious, Aaron?
Well, we would certainly miss them if they weren't here, and that would be our listeners.
That's right, our listeners. Each and every one of you. You guys are hilarious. You guys are wonderful, and we appreciate you tuning in to this fine episode of the Assorted Calibers podcast. But we must give some very special thanks to all our patrons. To become a Patreon patron, go to patreon.com/Assorted Calibers podcast to sign up. Patrons get early use of the podcast, plus bonus content like our hilarious blooper reels, the ACB film tracks, and the ACB mag dump.
Also, please remember to rate us on Apple Podcasts and Pocket Casts, subscribe to us on the platform of your choice, and share the show with your friends, both online and off.
I've got a blog. It's weerdworld.com. That's WEERD world.com. And hear me weekly on Handgun Radio on the Firearms Radio Network.
And in the past, you could get more from me at Linktree/Aaron Paulette. That's linktree.ee/Aaron Paulette, all one word. I don't know if I'm ever going to do anything again, because no one seems interested in what I have to offer anymore. I know, that came off more passive-aggressive than I meant. Sorry.
And thanks to Nate Spencer for our music.
He throws shade at Tapco. I am completely unrepentant about having Tapco tarted my Chinese SKS clone. Our sense of propriety, taste, perhaps even shame is assorted. And so is our podcast. Good night, everyone.
Good night.